Our group is presenting discussion number 6 on adverse selection. In our presentation, we will cover the economic concepts of price discrimination, market saturation, adverse selection, asymmetrical information, moral hazard, and the lemon versus peach analogy. Then we will apply these concepts to examples involving health insurance, airlines, banks, and real-world businesses like Zappos. Let's start with some economic concepts before we dive into application-based examples.
Price discrimination refers to the practice of charging different prices to different groups of consumers for the same product or service. In pure price discrimination, the seller charges each customer the maximum price they will pay. In more common forms, the seller places customers in groups based on certain attributes and charges each group a different price. This strategy is often used by businesses to maximize their profits by targeting different segments of the market with different price points. There are several forms of price discrimination, such as first degree, second degree, and third degree. Each type of price discrimination is designed to capture a different segment of the market. Price discrimination is most valuable when the profit that is earned as a result of separating the market is greater than the profit that is earned as a result of keeping the markets combined. Whether price discrimination works and for how long the various groups are willing to pay different prices for the same product, it depends on the relative elasticities of demand in the submarkets. Consumers in a relatively inelastic submarket pay a higher price, while those in a relatively elastic submarket pay a lower price. Many industries, such as the airline industry, use price discrimination strategies. One example of price discrimination can be consumers buying airline tickets several months in advance, and they typically pay less than the consumers purchasing at the last minute. When demand for a particular flight is high, airlines raise ticket prices in response. By contrast, when tickets for a flight are not selling well, the airline reduces the cost of available tickets to try to generate sales. Because many passengers prefer flying home late on Sunday, then those flights tend to be more expensive than the flights leaving early Sunday morning. Airline passengers typically pay for additional legroom too. Market saturation, on the other hand, occurs when a market reaches a point where there is little or no room for growth. This happens when all potential customers have already purchased a product or service and there is no new demand to be found. Market saturation can be caused by various factors, such as competition, changes in consumer preferences, or technological advancements. A saturated market often includes a handful of major suppliers who all sell a specific product or products with potentially low profit margins that make entering the market not as enticing to new companies. In conclusion, understanding the principles of price discrimination and market saturation is crucial for businesses to succeed in today's competitive market. By implementing effective pricing strategies and monitoring market trends, businesses can stay ahead of the curve and maintain their competitive edge.
Adverse selection is when sellers or buyers are withholding information during a transaction at the expense of one another. An example of adverse selection is a used car salesman who alters the mileage on their vehicles to make it appear more attractive to the buyer. Not all used cars have a high mileage being altered, but some do. The salesman knows the true value of the car and its mileage, but the buyer doesn't. Without the other piece of knowledge, the buyer cannot accurately make a decision on what is a good deal or not. Adverse selection can scare sellers with high quality cars away from the market because the used cars can be sold more often when the information of their poor mileage is withheld. The high quality sellers have a hard time competing with the lower cost of the bad used cars because buyers are attracted to the lower prices. The high quality sellers will stop selling their cars, leaving bad cars as all that's left on the market, and the market spirals down as buyers continue to pay the lowering average cost since only bad car dealers are left on the market. On this slide is a graph taken from Kyle Zbadea on the Adverse Selection Wikipedia page. This represents the spiral. Buyers will continue to pay the lowering average price of these goods from poor quality sellers, which makes it no longer worth it for high quality sellers, so they drop out of the market, which further reduces the average quality of goods and the average price, and this spirals down in a continuous cycle. Next, we're going to go over asymmetrical information.
Asymmetrical information, also known as information failure, occurs when one party knows more or has a deeper understanding than the other. This is typically seen in a buyer-seller relationship. For example, if a homeowner is selling their house, they know more about the property than the buyer. The seller knows if the neighbors have a dog who barks throughout the night or if there's a squeaky floorboard. Once the buyers purchase the home, they will then come to realize this information failure and may believe they overpaid for the property. Another scenario in which this can be seen is specialization. For example, a doctor who went to medical school has a greater understanding of medicine than their patients. This holds true for engineers, MBAs, attorneys, and so on. Here we will take a look at the different pros and cons of asymmetrical information, and we'll start off with the pros. From an economic perspective, asymmetrical information is not a negative concept. Instead, it's the desired outcome of a healthy market economy. This is because it means that skilled workers specialize in a specific trade, thus providing value towards productivity and other traders. We'll take a look at this in a quick example. Upon retirement, a farmer may want to begin investing in stocks and build a portfolio. A stockbroker's knowledge will be valuable to this farmer who has no prior knowledge in investments. Similarly, the stockbroker does not know how to harvest crops or raise livestock. He must turn to the grocery store to be provided with those things. The farmer who sells his product and meat to the grocery store just benefited from the stockbroker. They both benefit from trade and the division of labor. Moving over and taking a look at cons, asymmetric information provides the potential for fraudulent transactions. Further, the information gaps in asymmetrical information can lead to the abuse of the party with less information, as the more informed party may take advantage of their lack of knowledge. This is seen in adverse selection covered in the slides prior. Next, we will take a look at the concept of moral hazard.
Moral hazard is the risk that a party has not entered into a contract in good faith or has provided misleading information about its assets, liabilities, or credit capacity. Additionally, moral hazard also may mean a party has the incentive to take unusual risks in a desperate attempt to earn a profit before the contract settles. Moral hazards can be present anytime two parties come into agreement with one another. Each party in a contract may have the opportunity to gain from acting contrary to the principles laid out by the agreement. Anytime a party in an agreement does not have to suffer the potential consequences of a risk, the likelihood of a moral hazard increases.
You made a reservation for a mid-size, and she's a small. I'm kidding around, of course.
Yes. Okay, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, we have no midsize available at the moment.
I don't understand. I made a reservation. Do you have my reservation?
Oh, yes, we do. Unfortunately, we ran out of cars.
But the reservation keeps the car here. That's why you have the reservations.
I know why we have reservations.
I don't think you do. If you did, I'd have a car. See, you know how to take the reservation, you just don't know how to hold the reservation. And that's really the most important part of the reservation, the holding. Anybody can just take them.
Let me speak with my supervisor.
Here we go. The supervisor. You know what she's saying over there?
What?
Hey, Marge, see those two people over there? They think I'm talking to you. So you pretend like you're talking to me. Okay, now you start talking.
Oh, you mean like this, so it looks like I'm saying something, but I'm not really saying anything at all?
Okay, now you say something else, and they won't yell at me because they thought I was checking with you.
Oh, great, I think that's enough. See you later.
I'm sorry, my supervisor says there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, it looked like you were in a real conversation over there.
But we do have a compact if you would like that.
Fine.
All right. Well, we have a blue Ford Escort for you, Mr. Seinfeld. Would you like insurance?
Yeah, you better give me the insurance because I am going to beat the hell out of this
A moral hazard occurs when one party in a transaction has the opportunity to assume additional risks that negatively affect the other party. The decision is based not on what is considered right, but on what provides the highest level of benefit. Therefore, the reference to morality. This can apply to activities within the financial industry, such as with the contract between a borrower and a lender, in addition to the insurance industry. There are a few ways to minimize moral hazards. The first is to encourage the risk-taking party to act more responsibly by offering them incentives. The second is to institute policies that discourage immoral behavior by making it a punishable offense. Finally, regular monitoring allows the at risk party to remain aware of whether or not the other party is taking advantage of them. The bank may have made the wager that because the federal government did cover uninsured deposits in 2008, that it might do so again. And it was right, says Patricia McCoy, professor at Boston College Law School. McCoy said that SVB execs probably didn't say out loud, oh, the feds will rescue us, so let's not worry about all these problematic treasuries on our books. But maybe they felt a little less worried because of what the feds did in 2008 and then again during the pandemic. The federal government has said, read my lips, no new bailouts too many times. It's simply not believable, McCoy said. So when push comes to shove and a bank with $175 billion in deposits with deep ties to tech gets wobbly, everyone kind of expects the feds to do something. This hasn't been a complete bailout. SVB shareholders and bondholders lost their shirts and execs have been fired. But the Federal Deposit Insurance Corps did cover all those startups who kept accounts beyond the formal $250,000 insurance cap. It sends a terrible signal long term, said Arthur Wilmarth, professor at George Washington University Law School, that people will now absolutely believe that all deposits are protected. But if the FDIC didn't send that message, maybe people panic and withdraw their uninsured deposits from every regional bank in the country. In that case, the financial world could fall apart again. This is why the feds deemed an SVB failure a systemic risk to the entire financial system. Wilmarth said the real antidote to moral hazard in the banking sector is preemptive regulation, preventing the banks from taking bad risks in the first place.
The lemon and peach analogy is a long-standing way economists describe the market born from an asymmetric information between buyers and sellers. While every consumer is hoping to purchase a peach or a product that is fit for sale and use, often sellers are offering lemons, a sour or malfunctioning version of that product. The used car market is where this is most easily and prominently seen. Sellers have a skewed abundance of information on the product, which causes lemon sellers who sell at a lower price to saturate the market. Another market in which peaches and lemons can be clearly seen is in insurance. When taking on a client for an insurance policy, it is possible that the insurance company is not able to tell whether this person is risk averse and will cost the group a low amount in coverage, or whether this person is risk taking and will be a high cost to cover. In this way, people can be lemons or peaches to insurance companies and hold a skewed abundance of information over the insurance group.
Bill wants to buy a 5-year-old Model ABC car. We'll assume he's only interested in this exact model and age. In his city, there are 20 such cars for sale. The problem is this: they are not all alike. Some of the cars have several frequently hidden problems and can become a headache for the new owners, cars usually referred to as lemons. Other owners have been luckier or more careful when it comes to maintaining their vehicles, perhaps both, and as such, their cars are very good. Unfortunately for Bill, each seller knows how good or bad his car is because he's had it for enough time to figure this out. Bill, however, doesn't, and this is a case of information asymmetry, a type of imperfect information which leads to quote-unquote market failures, as some economists call them. We'll say a fair price for a lemon is $5,000 and the fair price for a very good car is $10,000. Bill doesn't want to pay $10,000 because he has to factor in the risk of the car turning out to be a lemon, so he will try to go as close to $5,000 as possible. Lemon sellers are happy enough with this state of affairs, whereas those who own very good cars are not, and will be tempted to leave the market and simply keep their vehicles. Such scenarios have been described in George Akerlof's famous The Market for Lemons 1970 paper, with him actually receiving a Nobel Prize for his information asymmetry-related research. However, do keep in mind that not everyone agrees with this perspective, and especially the proposed regulation to fix things, with, let's say, libertarians being against the market intervention in such cases, stating that entrepreneurs can step in and find solutions, for example, specialized marketplaces, auto buyer consultants, and so on.
This phenomenon was written about in The Market for Lemons by George Akerlof, which won him a Nobel Memorial Prize in 2001. In his work, he discusses how the lemon problem bleeds into every market transaction, which can cause substantial problems. Akerlof shows that hypothetically, the information problem can either cause an entire market to collapse or contract it into an adverse selection of low-quality products. The Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act was passed by Congress in 1975 and serves to protect consumers from purchasing lemons. This act governs the content and regulation of consumer product warranties. The Act protects consumers' rights by detailing the obligations of warrantors that offer written warranties on their consumer products. The Act also limits the restrictions that can be placed on implied warranties. The Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act establishes 3 requirements that must be met by manufacturers, sellers, and warrantors of consumer product. The 3 requirements are that written warranties must be titled either full or limited warranties. They must outline the coverage they provide using language that is easy to understand, and warranties must be available for consumers wherever the product they cover is sold. This protects consumers by making it easier to file breach of warranty claims after the purchase of a lemon and allows consumers to recover attorney's fees, courts costs, and other expenses. This provision levels the playing field between consumers and large corporations, making it feasible for the everyday consumer to be compensated when they are sold an unsatisfactory product, and allows for those with less means to have adequate legal representation.
After reviewing these economic concepts, we will now apply them to real-world business examples.
The effects of adverse selection are not always obvious. For example, the Affordable Care Act, or the ACA, signed in 2010, has been a topic of debate among analysts as to whether the policy creates adverse selection and to what extent. The ACA reformed healthcare law by providing tax-issued credits to those who fall below the poverty line. As the policy makes enrolling in healthcare easier, the sorting of the market becomes more pronounced, since those with low health risk profiles have less of an incentive to enroll when they don't expect to need care in the near future. In the same way that you would be less risk adverse to registering for health insurance if you have poor health, those in good health have little reason to enroll. Because of this, the risk pool of insured people becomes skewed toward the high risk, high cost group. The policy has deterrence of adverse selection by limiting open annual enrollment to only a few weeks so that people will enroll before they need care. A precaution like this prevents the buyer pool from sorting themselves into a high-risk demographic. Health insurance is a common example in which adverse selection occurs because the insurers do not have the same level of information as the individuals who are seeking care.
I'd like to tell you all a story about a company that tried to cherry pick its market through adverse selection. American Airlines. Hailed by Forbes as the most unreliable airline in 2023, American has not exactly held the best track record in its lifetime. One particular blunder took place back in 1981, when American wanted to incentivize its most loyal group of customers. Now, it's important to note that at this time, the company was struggling financially. So they devised a plan in order to generate a quick influx of cash. Introducing the A-Air Pass, an American Airlines discount program that gave paying members a lifetime of first-class flights anywhere in the world. The initial price for this membership was $250,000, with an additional fee of $150,000 if you wanted a companion pass for a friend, relative, pet, or even a baby if you really wanted to piss people off. Most would consider those costs pretty steep, but those who fly frequently saw this as a worthwhile investment if they could afford it. 66 A-Air passes were sold under these conditions, and the promotion immediately backfired on American Airlines. Now, why is that, you may be thinking? Well, think of it this way. Imagine if the culinary marvel known as Waffle House offered a lifetime pass of unlimited meals for $700. Now, if I had $700 lying around, and I put that on the table for this lifetime of free meals, I would be at Waffle House for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. It would be about a month or two before I recover my investment and then some. But if I continue to eat there beyond that point, assuming I haven't had a heart attack yet, it would cost Waffle House more in the long term to serve me free all-star specials. That's exactly what happened with the A-Air Pass. It costs more for American Airlines to serve this consumer base over time than it did for passengers to pay for the membership. In fact, some members flew so frequently that they saved $125,000 in first-class flights in the first month alone. Give that a year and you've got a major problem on your hands. American took notice of this issue, and just like Netflix, they enacted price increases over time to compensate for their dumbassery. What started at $250,000 for the A-Air Pass in 1981 became $600,000 in 1990, then $1.01 million in 1993, a 304% price increase over the course of 11 years. They finally gave in and stopped offering the pass in 1994. That is until 10 years later when American bought this project back from the dead and listed a one-time offer in the Neiman Marcus Christmas catalog. And just in case you thought that they learned from their mistake, they tripled the price this time at $3 million with a companion pass for an additional $2 million. Absolutely zero passes were sold under this offer, ending the A Air Pass as a complete failure and an utter embarrassment for the airline.
In contrast to American Airlines, Capital One found a way to cherry-pick the most profitable customers from competitors. Capital One, now a huge provider of credit cards and other financial services, teaches us a lesson in using adverse selection to one's own advantage. Founded in 1988, Richard Fairbank convinced small regional bank to experiment with its credit card unit. At that time, almost all credit cards issued in the United States had two similarities. First, same interest rate on unpaid balances, and second, annual fees were comparable across cards. Fairbank believed that he could generate higher profits by tailoring the fees and interest rates to the cardholder's risk of default. In the credit card industry, the most profitable customers carry balances and do not default. Based on this important premise, and after many trial and error experiments, Capital One struck gold when it offered the first balance transfer program. Capital One will pay off the person's credit card debt and charge the new customer little to no interest for the first year, after which interest rates increase to the market rate. At least in 1988, balance transfer appealed to credit card customers who carry balances and pay on time. In contrast, a customer who doesn't carry a balance or who doesn't intend to pay off the debt wouldn't find this transfer program appealing. As a result, Capital One was able to cherry pick the most profitable customers from the other credit card issuers, the customers who paid their balances in full every month. And other banks were stuck with unprofitable customers, those who were likely to default.
At first thought, paying an employee to quit seems like a costly action for a company whose overall goal is to maximize profit. Why would a company take the time to hire someone, then pay them to quit? By applying this concept to their systems, employers receive the delayed gratification of having mentally invested employees as opposed to temporary job hoppers that could cost them thousands later down the road. The bottom line is that employees must consider what they want and to determine whether to psychologically sign a contract to solidify their commitment to the company. In conclusion, it is shown that an exit bonus can be seen as profitable by weeding out unmotivated workers. Regardless of the industry, employee engagement is directly linked to customer satisfaction. You have to find workers who genuinely want to contribute to the well-being of the company based on non-monetary ties. This model is especially prevalent in Zappos, the originator of pay to quit. I'll now pass it on to Caroline to talk more about Zappos.
Zappos is an online clothing and shoe store now owned by Amazon. This successful brand amasses over $1 billion in sales per year. Additionally, their former CEO, Tony Hsieh, was always known for his cutting-edge managerial initiatives. One of these has been coined the offer. The idea behind this aligns with the pay-to-quit concept that we've explained. Essentially, workers at Zappos are bribed with a quitting bonus of $1,000 once they complete a 4-week training period. The premise is to weed out unengaged workers who are out of alignment with Zappos' culture. Many see the money and run, leaving the employees who are truly a good fit. This is genius since it facilitates self-selection. Workers self-select themselves out of the organization and take the exit bonus buyout if they value the money more than their job. For Zappos, this lowers their internal operating costs from turnover, recruitment, training, and lost productivity in the long run by weeding out workers who are uncommitted early on instead of investing capital in them. This is why many other firms have adopted this same methodology. These graphics prove that employee disengagement lowers worker productivity by 18%, lowers profitability by 15%, and makes workers 37% more likely to take off of work than engaged workers. This further proves the rationale behind why the pay to quit policy is so crucial in actively removing disengaged workers before they drain an organization's resources. Since employers have less information about the true motivation of their workers, the pay to quit policy provides some insurance in protecting against retaining disengaged employees.
While there are benefits of the pay to quit policy that these companies are implementing, there are risks too. One of the most pressing risks involves something called asymmetrical information. As stated before, asymmetrical information is when one party possesses more information than another party. In many cases, asymmetrical information can be used to take advantage of the other person or people involved who possess less information. In the case of the pay to quit policy, oftentimes the worker possesses asymmetrical information over the employer, especially when it comes to the intention of quitting or not quitting. With that being said, there is a risk that companies with a pay to quit policy in place may inadvertently attract workers who lack the attention to stay with the firm. According to two professors at a school of economics, in order for this policy to function effectively, it must come as a surprise to the new hire. Additionally, with companies having the rule where the employee would never be hired by the company again, the quitting employee may not see that as a loss to their future career, with a number of companies looking to hire new employees. If a company has this policy, it needs to be extremely clear when the time period is for the employee to receive the sum of money for their resignation. With companies like Amazon, who offer this for employees who have been with the company for at least a year, the company must mitigate the risk of unintentionally singling out underperforming tenured employees. This could result in the employee feeling as if they are being asked to leave without first being asked to improve their behavior or performance. There could be legalities involved with this, called unfair dismissal or discrimination claims involved with this situation. Thanks for listening to our presentation on adverse selection in hiring and sales.